Hey team, welcome along to today's episode. Again, we're going to bring you more athletes, more experts, and more knowledge about the games, the sports, the fitness episodes that happen around here in the UAE, and how you can evolve, how you can improve your fitness, how you can improve your health, or you can develop a career in the space. Today, we're going to talk netball, and we've got Susan and Emily here that are going to share their expertise, their experiences, and share their knowledge and values that are going to help you develop yourself in this space. So without further ado, ladies, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Just like that. We're underway. We're having a great conversation off camera before we started recording. And there's been, in that short 5 minutes, I was like, man, I wish I had already pushed record before we started. It was like nuggets being thrown out. So we might repeat a few things. But I kind of want to start just with your guys' background, just quickly about UAE Netball yourselves or your experience. I mean,
sure.
Yeah, just give us a quick 60-second about yourself.
Okay.
Netball.
Right. Okay, so I first came to Dubai in 1987.
Awesome.
Yes, a long time ago. Went away, came back like a lot of people did 14 years ago. Started up a netball company. Worked in schools for a bit. Started up a netball company. Saw a bit of a gap in as much as at that time, 14 years ago, if you were in a school that provided netball, then happy days. And if you weren't, well, it wasn't anything for you.
Yeah.
So I set about doing some coaching outside of school. That grew into an umpire program that grew into leagues.
Evolution.
Yeah. And then on a beach one day with a friend who was the chairman of Europe Netball at the time, said, you guys should really come over and play and, you know, maybe get a team together. So we went over, but not as a federation or an association. We just went over to sort of have a look, had played, won, enjoyed the win, thought, oh, do you know what? I think we could maybe do something here. Came back and started having some conversations about how do we make an association and a federation and make that official. And here we are.
Wow.
I mean, a lot has happened in between.
Yeah.
Lots
and we're going to dig into that.
Sweat and tears. But in a nutshell, that's it. So
brilliant.
Live for netball.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I actually played netball under Susanne back in the UK when I was
there we
kid.
go. Yeah.
And then
Part of the evolution.
Absolutely, yeah. And then moved out here as the head coach of active netball in 2018. And then slowly got involved in UAE Netball, as you do, and then took on the head coach of the under-17s this year.
There we go, yeah.
Yeah, again,
we're going to talk about that
evolution.
success very shortly. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Let's start then, because it's a development, I suppose, here, because it's such a young nation as well.
Yeah.
Like, that's one thing that I think a lot of sports do go through. What are let's start off with some barriers, like some of the things that you've faced in the last, say, only 5 to 7 years since you come over, Emily, on that side?
Barriers that we face. I think having a federation, it is unimaginable that we don't have Emirati players at this moment in time. I think we have to be very recognizant of the fact that the country is 86% expatriate. So to find a pure Emirati team hasn't really been an easy thing to do. And it was definitely something that we started with. But that's not easy when there is no funding. So obviously we talked before about things coming back to, so that's one of our biggest problems, I guess, that everybody faces. We're a female sport, you know, we're an unknown sport. We're not a professional sport. And so to find funding for something like that, we've had to really dig deep to make it exciting. And I think that the Emirati program, the Emiratization program is definitely something that is on the radar, and there are some better and better conversations sort of like happening, but you can't get people to buy into something if they don't know what it looks like. So our job over the last sort of like 10 years is to show them what it could look like. And it's really exciting. And we have got a few Emirati players in the background that are coming up through the programs, but you can't go out and put them onto a big international stage and if they're not ready for that yet. So we have to find a way and a pathway for them too. And I think it's right and proper, like in the rugby, for example, where you've got 2 different pathways that go through. But it's not just about playing on the court. It's also about being involved in the sport. So finding a way to get women involved in netball, in the direction of the netball, in the management of that kind of thing, and all the administrative kind of tasks that there are on and off the court. So that's kind of what we're looking to do.
But it starts somewhere, right? So it's first about getting people, just like yourself, as an individual, playing the game yourself first. People see you play it, they want to come and join. What are you doing? Then more people come along, and it kind of rolls on from there. And it's just, I suppose this is right now is where the part of the journey is. To eventually it gets there. Like, it's such a young country. I don't think people remember how young this country is. And then,
I know.
You know, maybe we kind of forget, like, In
It's so
Australia, the UK,
advanced.
New Zealand, it's all like
But it's
normal.
phenomenal what has happened in this country over very, very few years.
A short period of time.
Yeah.
Such a short time. And I
Massively.
came out here in 87.
Hey there, if you're finding this episode inspiring, you're finding it useful, applicable, we would love you to be part of the community. There's power in community, there's power in numbers. And by subscribing to the channel that you're watching this on or listening to this on, or sharing it with people that you know that may help benefit them, will only help us find more people within the community to help it grow, to support people to live an active and adventurous lifestyle. So if you don't mind, it would mean a lot if you just push subscribe, push like, and share it with someone that is going to help today.
And it looked a very, very different place than the place that it looks today. Some of it's better and some of it isn't quite as good. But
questionable,
yeah, exactly. But I think from a netball perspective, it's just amazing to see that we are now attracting like really high class players, or people are really thinking, do you know what, I could actually make a career over there, whether it's on the court or off the court, as I say. People are wanting to come out here to be part of the coaching team. So that's evolving and changing, and that means that we're getting new and fresh ideas from all over the world coming, you know, into little old Dubai and Abu Dhabi. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think that's made a massive difference to the standard of netball here too, attracting those bigger names and those coaches, and people know who the UAE are, and people have seen the UAE play, and big players that I suppose we all look up to and probably wouldn't even think know who we are now do, which is great. And they want to come over and coach and do workshops, and which is ultimately grows the sport, doesn't it?
The whole side of it.
Yeah.
When you said it was 19, way back to
She wasn't born.
It's like, what year were we in these days? 2018, you came over and you started the coaching. So what about the coaching side? It was like, what was the first, I suppose 7 years ago, brought over under Susanne to come over here. Maybe she tricked you to come over here.
No.
It was a nice trick anyway.
So what was the expectation from your side? Because you came over as a coach, right? So
I did. So I came over as a coach. So I looked at coaching at university, and when I was coaching back in the UK for my local club. And I don't think I really could have ever expected. I kind of came over knowing that we could make a bit of a difference in netball, but just to have fun with the girls. My big thing is making a difference with the girls and making sure that they love it. I love the sport. So you want to instill that love in them.
Massively, yeah.
So I think that's kind of was my ultimate aim, to be able to now do it on an international stage, and with UAE is kind of more than I could have expected. But I think to see how it's grown from even 7 years ago and the opportunities out there for netball and what the girls can get involved with is massive.
Even the game itself, like seeing, like I suppose in the last few months, I didn't realize how much netball goes on here too. Like there's so many modules every night. Like teams, like it seems a very common story, and it is amazing that like you've got a couple of people they want to get their daughters into it, then they start up a club, and now they've got like so many teams under their club, and then there's so many modules that run on different nights of the week as well. Like so, there's every day something somewhere. Absolutely. There's netball happening, you know, which is like.
It's really exciting, isn't it, to see that kind of like growth. So from a few schools playing netball 14 years ago, literally, there is now a massive club structure. Up until a few days ago, there were 12 clubs. We've now got 13.
Wow, there we go. See?
So I've got loads more people getting involved in that. And you're right, it's through, I've got a couple of kids. That's how I started. I did that in the UK. My daughter played netball, and I thought, okay, well, I'll try and get involved. Our community doesn't have one. Let's do that. And everything we do is all about community. There's loads going on, whether you're in school, whether you're in a club. There are pathways. There's loads and loads of different offerings that underpin, everything that the UAE does. And you can't just have the UAE. That doesn't work. You need everything underneath it. So there's a really great pathway of schools and clubs, and then you've got performance pathways and programs that have there. And then something I think Emily's going to talk to you about as well, which is the Future Falcons program, which sits just underneath.
Sure, 100%.
And it's important to have that pathway because every part of it is integral. If you don't have any of those layers, or if there are parts of those layers that are missing, then you don't get to what you want to have at the top. And not everyone's going to be a performance. I was never a performance athlete, but it doesn't mean that stopped me from being involved in netball. And I love it. And I think that there's so many people that can be involved in it with so many different ways.
Growing that. What on the coaching side? So then we're going back to the development. Obviously, the game's grown, which is fantastic, which also you need coaches to grow that. What kind of things are in place currently to help coaches develop themselves? Because there's going to be girls now playing the game. So
So there's lots of different, so Europe Netball offer a lot of courses. So I'm currently going through my level 3,
Oh, very
which
cool.
is the advanced coaching. Yes.
Yeah.
And there's also a few, I'm not the only one in the UAE, there's a
Mhm.
few of us. So obviously late nights and trying to get on the Europe Netball time zone to do lots of that stuff. But also there's CPD going on. So we get lots of coaches. There's been high kind of big names. So Tamsin Greenway came out a couple of months ago just to deliver some CPD, and all of that really helps
Very
in
cool.
terms of us seeing that and seeing
Yeah.
what that looks like in terms of what the UK are doing or what Australia are doing, New Zealand, for us to try. And I think coaching sometimes is a little bit about that. You kind of take what other people are doing and kind of use it to your own advantage. And I don't think
Literally.
that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
There's only so many ways you can kind of reinvent the wheel, I suppose.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we kind of look at those and we all learn from each other. And I think
Nice.
that's the big thing that we've looked at in particular this year.
Yeah.
We've got a real like mentoring network amongst our coaching team to make sure that we're all learning from each other.
That's correct. What is the coaching aspects? What are the main, like, broken down into before it comes to netball? So when you think about fitness, you think about skills, coordination, agility, speed,
we try and do a lot. And I think as UAE, we can only do so much with the time that we've got them. So this is why we rely quite heavily on the clubs and the schools to make sure that the girls that are coming up and through are at that level. As a UAE, you can't spend your whole training session looking at fitness.
Yeah, totally.
Otherwise, you'd never do any like strategy or any of the technical work that you need to do. So I think we rely quite heavily on that. And that's something that we are going to look at. In particular, the S&C has been a big one for us going forward. If girls want to play at that level, you have to be strong.
Yeah.
And I think looking at some of the elite athletes that are coming through from netball, they are super strong. They
Absolute
are super
weapons.
tall.
It's like unbelievable. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think some of our girls, even in March, our under 17s went and looked at England and we were playing against full grown women.
Yeah.
Because they're so strong and they're always in the gym and they're really fit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it was a big eye opener for our girls to be like, okay, we maybe need to be a bit fitter if we want to compete for those first and second place spots.
Yeah, massive.
You're right, and I think you're talking about sort of like the whole element of like being fit on the court, but it's also mental fitness, isn't it? And awareness. I think a lot of time that Emily's been putting it with all the other girls who are on the level 3 has always been focused on player well-being as well. I think that's really important. So it's interesting that you talk about there's so much netball out, but sometimes maybe for these elite athletes, you've got to be a little bit more picky and choosy about what you're actually doing and what's important. And to become a performance athlete, I find it eye-opening all the time because, like I say, I've not been a performance athlete. So to see what the girls have to do, and it's hard as a teenage girl. These are some really tough choices. Do you go out with your friends?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you
the ability to say
even
no.
Studies, like how much more am I going to study, or could I actually go and fit another gym session in, or that's what I really should be doing. That's really hard, and that mindset, I think, is something that is where we need to spend a lot of our focus. I think.
There's a big difference when it comes to high level sport too. When it comes to that final 1% or what happens between the ears, right? You know, when it comes to that side, that's the difference at the end of it. What's something you noticed when you talked about the English team? There's an eye opener for you guys. Fitness was one thing. Was there also like a mentality you saw there as well?
Yeah, I think they play high level netball day in, day out. So they're used to that standard of netball on a weekly basis within their club structure, within their whichever kind of pathway they're with, whichever franchise they're with. They're all playing MPL. So I think that's a big difference for us. Our girls get to play that standard of netball maybe once or twice a year.
Yeah.
And they get to go out there on the court, and I think it's big eyes, and they're like, oh wow, okay. Because we can talk them and we can try and prep them as best we can. But I don't think until you've seen it, until you've experienced it, that you don't quite get that. And I think our girls' mindset changed massively, even after playing England on the first day.
Yeah.
Just because they like, okay, now we get what you were talking about, and now we get that, and now we've seen it and we've felt it. So I think for us to try and get that exposure more often for them would be massive, and I think it'd make a massive difference to the program. Not even just the under 17s, I think even the Open.
Yeah, for sure.
Having that level of competition more regularly, it would make a massitive difference to performance.
It's funny because when you see it on TV, like any sport, you think like, oh, you don't quite appreciate it until you're right. Yeah, exactly. And that's, I suppose, one of the biggest things that you're saying here on that side is that, like, wow, even though, because I'm sure the girls watch so much netball anyway on YouTube or on on TV, and then to be
Netball
in front,
Pass, yeah,
you know what I mean, and then all of a sudden going, oh, this is much stronger.
Feeling it is so totally different. To have somebody that's practically twice your size breathing down your neck and bodying up, that's quite an interesting one. So
Yeah.
but then having said that, it really obviously we are yards apart from England,
Mhm.
but we're competing with
Well,
the
number
other
2 in the
teams.
world right now?
No, they've dropped down
They've,
actually. I
yeah,
think
for
it
the new
was
rankings.
the
Oh,
new rankings
really?
come out on a regular basis.
They're
I
all
think they're
around there.
they go around between 2, 3, 4.
Yeah. Well,
That's
they've
where
beating New Zealand lately, so
they did.
being a
They
Kiwi,
did.
I'm like, "Ah,
They did.
yeah,
Yeah, and I
dropping
think
down."
it's not even just about sometimes feeling it.
Mhm.
They play netball on a Tuesday night or whenever they play their netball, especially if they're from Dubai, they'll play on a Tuesday and there's no cameras, there's no
Mhm.
crowd,
Yeah.
there's no bench,
Yeah.
there's no kind of running onto
Some more
the
casual
court
sort
and
of
being announced. It's
Yeah.
very casual. And
Yeah.
I think all of that goes to the mental side of it too, which is
Mhm.
kind of why I've said girls at that level can sometimes be a bit unpredictable when you talk
Mhm.
about athletes. You can
Mhm.
prep them and we've got our technical game and all of that. We've sorted it and we've gone through in our team talks,
Yeah.
but actually they've never seen the cameras. They've never had people commentating about
Yeah.
them on a game, and all of that plays a part because that's in the back of their
Massively.
mind.
Yeah, hugely. It's the same little thing like people, and I suppose when you're talking about the young ones as well, like some jump on social media quite easily, others don't. They get camera shy straight away. And the same thing happens in sports.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Every day you'll play, no one's looking, but then all of a sudden there's a camera there, and people go like,
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
Stage fright.
Yeah, and we had a
Literally.
14-year-old that had never
Yeah.
experienced that, and that's young
Yeah, literally.
to be on that international stage, and obviously a massive talent for the future.
Mhm.
But I think sometimes we underestimate that
Yeah.
how tough that might be for some of them. So it's about not just prepping them from a coaching physical point of view,
Yeah, massively.
but from the mental side, like Susanne said.
Because it does make the massive difference, right? Because the aim is to get them to relax, to be calm
Yeah.
on that stage, try and act or feel like there's nothing different. But
everything's
But
different.
everything is different. Yeah.
But it's even down to things like fueling, and that's not a battle, but it's something. It's a constant educational piece that they need to understand what that is. They're an engine now. They're a machine that needs to go out onto the court and perform, and their body can't start with a bacon sandwich in the morning. It's got to have proper fuel in. So it's all that educational piece, which we need the parents on board for that kind of thing as well. So that takes time. That really takes time, which is why we're looking at trying to sort of start some of those things a little bit, the
Yeah.
guidance a little bit earlier, so that by the time we get them selected for the under-17 squad, they have that in their locker.
I definitely would touch on this before we get into the Falcons program, because female, young, going through these changes at this time, and I'm sure that's in the sport of netball, like when you guys go to, there must be different things that happen that you have to deal with away from the sport, obviously, to help them relax. Because like you're saying right now, like don't have that, was it the nuggets or they go to McDonald's because it's just, young people in the first place.
Yep.
They think invincible. I can eat whatever I
Yeah.
want. I'm going to eat whatever I want. I don't want to say young ladies are emotional, but they probably are in the same ways. But then,
Yeah, they are. Yeah, I'll agree.
I don't want to say it out loud. But then there's that side of it, like you just mentioned, their nutrition and how to take it more seriously at a younger age.
Yeah.
That battle or that challenge within yourselves. Like, do you see there's a role that you guys like to take on from official sports? Like, you're
hugely.
12, but now I'm trying to get professional, and you kind of have to mature even faster.
Yeah, you gave a really good talk
Yeah.
actually, Emily, about like you're now here as an athlete, and this is what this means, and it's not just nutrition; it's sleep. You know, you can't be on your phone for like
Literally,
2-3
yeah.
hours. When we've said lights out, that's not okay.
We're not here on a big sleepover.
No,
Yes,
and I
yeah.
think that's also because they go on some great
Yeah.
sport tours with schools. Of course they do, but it's not a sports tour.
Yeah.
We are literally at the venue on a bus in the hotel, and that's it,
Yeah.
on a loop.
Literally.
Yeah, and until people have seen that, you get given a schedule. So Susanne, as team manager, gives us all a running order, and it's down to the second. And I think I'm not sure even they've had their lives kind of managed for them to that point or to that degree. So I think all of that plays a part, and it's also with teenage girls, it's tricky because they have to fuel like they've never fueled before. They have to eat more than maybe their peers are eating, and so it's that different mindset.
It's a mentality too when society says, beautiful to skinny, and it is changing in my mind anyway. The
It is, yeah.
athletic
Yeah.
ability, I think, like strong is beautiful type of thing.
Absolutely, and we
I
need to get them to eat.
Yeah,
and I think that
literally.
was our biggest thing. And we're almost like checking their plates to make sure that they are fueling. And
Mm-hmm.
and we were lucky this year. Our girls were great at that, weren't they? And they were like, please can we have chicken and potatoes? That's what we want, and that's what they were asking for. So they were asking for lots of good fuel, which was great. So it's just about And it's hard. With the under-17 programme, you think that you've got them and you've done it, whereas it's a whole different cohort every year. Because the ones that then get it are then too old. So then you have to work with the next lot coming through.
What is it then, some of the tricks then you have to go through to do that? Is it more of a just be strict, or is it
sometimes, yeah, you
take
are
their
not
phones
to
off
eat
them
this.
as well? Or?
We got them all eating porridge. We just
We did.
Do you know what? You need to fuel properly. It needs to be slow release. You're all going to have a bowl of porridge. The faces were hilarious. And they were like, trying to sort of like put this porridge in their mouth as if it was going to kill them. Or we were like, going, it's your fuel. That's what you got to do.
Yeah, literally.
And they did it. They were very good.
They were.
And I think even one day we had a little recovery walk to Marks and Spencer's.
Okay, yeah.
And we gave them a list.
Nice.
And it was, this is what you have to buy. Like this, you can buy off this list only. And it was great to see them, wasn't it? Yeah. Walking around with their baskets and like, can we buy this? Can we get this?
Oh, wow.
And so they took it really seriously. But again, and it's, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's just trying to educate them on that, to know that they need to fuel their body. So if they don't want to feel tired 30 minutes into the game, you've got to eat that bowl of porridge.
Literally, yeah. Well, then I got to ask one more question about this, because on the phone side of things, obviously the smartphone is such a massive part of
huge issue at the moment.
Youth and stuff like that. So how do you guys deal with it when it comes to teaching someone to be professional? Or
it's hard. I think it's a fine line, isn't it? Because you're taking them away into a situation that is alien to them. It's difficult. It's challenging. We're demanding an awful lot of them. Like, we're changing their food and their sleep and everything. And to take everything away is actually pretty hard. But I think we need to perhaps be a bit firmer. So I foresee in the future there'll be a few more. There'll be a few sort of like stricter things. But they want to. Their parents want to. The parents want to contact them. Their friends want to contact them and tell them great things, which is lovely. But equally, we know that that's not always great. So I'm a big fan of no phones in the bedroom. I just think that's something that we need to do. And I know that lots of parents will be struggling with that right now with their teen. I'm very glad that I'm not a parent of a teenager at the moment. That I don't have to worry about that. But it's hard, isn't it? I think schools are putting lots of measures into place right now that they have the phones out of sight, but now we're trying to deal with smart watches.
You're
so
on there as well, right?
Yeah,
you're
phone
just calls,
forever connected, and that's kind of like tough. So I don't think we have the answers to all of that, but I think we managed it quite well, if I'm really honest.
I think we had a no phones at the dinner table policy. I think that's a great chance for them to connect.
Yeah.
And for us to be able to connect with them too.
It's a big part of team sport, right?
Absolutely.
Connecting with team members, like have the cohesion.
And I think we look at the way that we're set up for netball. We talk about them sitting in their unit. So all the shooters will have been sat together and the middies together. So just to try and build that cohesion. Yeah, have we got it fully right yet with the phones? Probably not, but
it's developments and evolution type thing as well.
It is. But I think schools will help. They were analysing the games when they sit in their sort of like units. They sat there for their meals and go, and did you see that? And then giving each other a bit of advice. I thought that was great. So I think it happened organically, if I'm honest.
Is it then? Because you just nearly touched on that too, with the analytical side of things, be able to go back. Well, that's a big thing with the cameras, right? When it is live stream, you can go back, look at your game, and you can really break it down. I mean, do you guys record anyway at your trainings?
We don't have our own PA per se. We do some sort of like recording of some of the match play situations we put ourselves in, and then it gets put onto Huddle.
Okay.
So we UAE have a conscription to Huddle, so we're able to sort of like, but we don't have anybody that can sit and code. We don't have that kind of money.
Okay.
To have somebody that sits and codes those things, but we do our best to sort of like pick out all those. That's your assistant coach Sue's absolute forte, isn't it?
Susie was amazing at that, and I think. You've got to have an assistant. As a head and assistant, you have to have people like yin and yang and that work together. And she was great. She loves it. Full on self-proclaimed
analytical,
netball
likes the numbers.
Geek, loves the analysis. And the girls also loved it, and they took that on board really well. And I think that's when you've got to look at the phones as well, because they watch the games on their phones.
Massively.
And they're actually not watching it to listen to the sound and to all the good bits. They're actually watching it back. So the girls were great on Huddle this year and clipping lots of things that they've done.
Very cool.
Which was great. And I think we use that a lot, and we utilise that a lot, especially in our before the game against Wales. I think that was a massive part of kind of some of our success in that game.
Absolutely.
And looking at what they did and how we could counteract that and what we could do against them. So I think the analysis side is massive. And I think if we could get someone on board with the coding, and obviously it'd just make our lives as coaches a lot easier. But it'd also help the girls in terms of their performance.
And that's the difference, isn't it, between what they're doing at school and club, etc., and when they come onto that performance side of it. How much I learn loads every time. I love listening to all the analysis. It's really interesting. You think, oh gosh, if only you just sort of like done that. Positioning is everything. It's the 1%ers. We've talked about that before.
Literally,
It's
that's
literally
it.
those.
Yeah.
And the international game these days is a lot more about analytics. It's so
Absolutely.
deeply immersed in a lot of sports, especially the top, and it's only getting more and more technologies are getting bigger, better.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as a professional sportsman too, you need to know these things, analytics right through your training when you talk about nutrition, macronutrients, micronutrients, when you talk about your fitness and things like that, or when you talk about analytics on what you're doing on the court, like how much you're moving, if you're just watching. It's just, it's crazy. Like, and it's just part of, it's going to be part of the future, obviously. It's part of it now.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
And we're all trying to do the same thing.
Yeah.
The game's the same for both teams. So so it is about those 1%ers and how you can get that 1% so that you can win the game by one goal. And ultimately, we're trying to play the same game. So we're not. No one's trying to do anything different. We're just trying to do it better than the team that you're playing against at the end of the day.
Well, that's the difference.
Yeah.
You said that actually in your final team talk. I think it was like,
I
I
can't
think
remember what I said then.
we are
on the wall as well,
very
though.
much both able to win this game. So it's going to
Yes.
come down to who wants it. What do we know, and what are we going to put into place?
Oh, yeah, I think that was my
game?
question. Why? Like, why do you want it
Why
more?
do you want it, and why are you going to be the one that picks up that medal at the end of the day? So it's good to ask those questions, isn't it? I think it was it was a great team talk.
Do you think about it from the coaching point of view? From obviously, you want to build and develop the players, and especially in a space because it is about development to get into like either pathways or international sides and stuff like that. But do you see a border, or you see a tipping point between the pressure of, because you need to put pressure on people to be better. So I'm like, pressure makes diamonds. The pressure of during these team talks, it's going to be the 1%. You want to push them, but you don't want to push them too much because then they crack. Do you think about these in the team talks, or is it just give them tough love, or just like get out there and do it?
I think different games, different situations.
Yeah.
So I think
You
there's
had a lot in your
certain
locker, Emily.
times-
You were great.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I think and you have different games. We had the massive highs where we beat Wales, and I had to go in the ice bath because that was part of the team talk that we threw in. Sometimes you've got to put in a little bit of like an incentive for them to win. Actually, that came from Suzanne. And the girls,
you had to go in
I had to go into the ice bath.
She did it very well.
If they won, I had to go in. Last game of the day as well, they weren't nice. So you have to do certain things like that, but you also have to know when to give them that love. I think sometimes when we've lost to England, we were always going to lose. We were under no illusion.
Yeah.
But when you've got girls that are coming off and they're upset because they've never experienced that before.
Yeah.
We've got the best girls in the UAE.
Yeah.
They don't lose.
Yeah.
In the UAE, they don't. So to go away and to lose by that margin is tough. It's not nice for us sat watching it. So you can imagine what it feels like for them as players. So knowing how to kind of manage their emotions around that, to know that you've got to pick them back up enough because we can now go and win the next couple of games.
Yeah.
So you have to learn how to kind of push them, I think, without cracking them.
Massively.
Yeah.
And that's still a learning curve as well.
Absolutely. And I think it changes every game. I don't think there's a one size fits all approach to that.
Yeah.
I think it's knowing the players you've got, leaning on the team that you've got around you, because we also need support in that situation.
Yeah, massively. Totally.
Because we're in new situations all the time too. So I think trying to have that empathy with them and not pushing them too much and not knowing that they can do it. So you've got to give them that belief that they can go out there. And I think team talks are a lot about that. You've done the hard work. By the time you get to your competition, there's nothing else that you can do.
What about pre-prep before the actual tournament? Going like, okay, look, these are the games we're going to circle as we want to learn. These are the ones we're going to like save a little bit for Wales, for example. We know we're there or thereabouts, but...
Yeah, I think we looked at that, didn't we, in terms of our prep, and we played against the Falcons. So we played against the open squad, which was a great learning curve for us, and kind of gave us kind of more of what we were expecting against the likes of Scotland and England. And it was a really good prep for us, for the girls to kind of feel what that actually feels like mentally and physically. But knowing that, I think lots of our prep was around like, this is who we're playing, go and watch these players.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it's slightly easier with an open squad because their team tends to stay the same, maybe by one or two players. At the under 17 level, you can quite often have a completely new squad. So footage from last year's competition doesn't really help in terms of what the players that they've got out on the court. So you can look at their structures and their tactics that they put out, which are likely to be the same if they've got the same coaching team.
Yeah.
But you
have to get familiar with each other as well.
Absolutely, yeah. So I think it's trying to prep them well enough when we're here. And that's why we've looked at obviously putting in the new Future Falcons program so that we get more access to them.
Brilliant.
And we can do that more often rather than just once every 2 weeks.
So was it with the recent success, was that the reason go to one step now to, let's talk about the program itself, because has it come from like 3 years ago, or has it just been something recently like, okay, look, we need this now because we're at this stage?
It's been a long time coming.
Long time
It
coming.
really has been a long time coming. And there's also not much parity between Dubai and Abu Dhabi at the moment. So everything is very Dubai centric. So all the girls from Abu Dhabi, we had 3 girls this year
3.
Inside the 12 that travelled with us. They've made a massive commitment to come to
The
Dubai.
captain's from Abu Dhabi too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And literally all the time coming down from Abu Dhabi to Dubai, Abu Dhabi to Dubai.
Yeah, for extra sessions, and they were coming on a weekend, and for all
there was
the
a need
extras.
to provide some parity, and I think that we need to develop the athletes over in Abu Dhabi to the same standard of Dubai. So we need to make sure that we've got the same thing going out, and like Emma said, we need to do that more regularly. But we've also, a couple of years ago, Deb Jones, who's headed up the coaching since its inception, is now in like a head of performance role. So she's been talking to lots of NGBs and like around the world. What does that look like for you? What works? What's best? And it's always doing the simple things or the basic things under pressure, and you've got to start those right from scratch at the very beginning.
Yeah.
So Scotland, for example, have an under 15 program that they put forward. Well, that's a big step to go and put that, and we just don't have the staff. So her remit really was to have a look and see what the other NGBs are doing around the world and what's successful, and how can we bring elements of that into the UAE to make us more successful, and how can we also broaden the coaching team so it's not just a small amount of people. How can we grow and develop that? And as we said before, we're attracting lots of exciting coaches, quite a few from the UK actually, but from all over that are coming in. So we want to build and expand that program. Coaching is different. It's you all know that in every sport, coaching has changed a lot. And I think Emily now and the other girls on the level 3 at the moment will see so much more focus on like player well-being and that element of it, and all the other bits, not just the tactical stuff on the court. There's so much more to coaching. And so to bring loads of more people in, to have lots of voices, everybody knows that many, many voices are needed to build the athlete. You might say exactly the same thing or mean the same thing as me, but you might just have a much better way of saying it that speaks to this player or that player. And it's important that the girls have lots of voices. So we want to build that coaching team. So that's what Deb's remit was really, to sort of like build and grow that. So it hasn't sprung out of nowhere. It's been a long time coming. But it's great to do that now off the back of this. It also adds kudos to that. Like, we're in a bronze position. What do we need to get silver? What are those 1%ers that we need to put in now? And it is more access time. That's absolutely crucial. And getting those basics right under pressure more consistently. And that's what we don't have. And to teach them about performance athleticism, I think that's really important.
So what are the micros or macros of the program? So someone goes like, cool, I want to be a part of it. What is that? What's that first step, I suppose, they're going to take? Yeah,
so we've just launched that obviously this year. So applications are still open.
Very cool.
So they can still register for that. So we're looking at obviously the right age group. So all of that's on there. But the big thing for us, I think, this year is giving the schools and the clubs a bit more kind of ownership on that too. They're with the girls day in, day out.
Yeah.
And they do. And it is daily. So for them to kind of recommend those girls and say, yep, this athlete has X, Y, and Z, and this is why we believe she'd be great for this program, or in terms of her talent that she's got going forward. Then we will look at obviously the trial process. So there'll be girls selected into the Dubai hub and the Abu Dhabi hub. And then we'll look at monthly camps where they'll come and get involved as part of the Young Falcons. So kind of move from that Future Falcons into the Young Falcons hub. And then we'll ultimately go to select a 12 ready for our competition again in March. So that's kind of the structure. So we're looking at girls that are playing at high level. Whether that's at school or at club, most of them are doing both. Obviously, they've got that extra kind of pathway and their pathways that they're in as well, and the academies that they're all in, and looking at girls. So we've actually just released our performance pyramid. So I've been working with Deb closely with that. So obviously, the bottom of that is the schools and the clubs, which is massive, and it should always be the biggest kind of section of your triangle, of your pyramid.
Of the sport, right?
Absolutely. So, and you don't get, like we've said, I think Susanne said, you don't get UAE netball without all of that.
Exactly.
So that's a massive part. Then they're obviously going and getting selected into their academies and their programs.
Sorry. Before we get onto that part, what is it you're looking for as far as in that level from players?
From players?
Yeah.
Okay. their mental side of it. So kind of their mental toughness is a big one, because it's tough.
Yeah.
Even as I think that's probably one of our biggest ones. They obviously have to play.
Yep.
They have to be kind of at the right standard. But looking at a trial, what we've all discussed, so Susie and Deb and I have discussed, we're not looking for the finished article. So when they come to trial in April, we're not looking for them to be of that standard. I think the girls that we took away with us in March, so the young Falcons that have just competed, if we look at the standard that they were at back in September, I don't think they would have even said themselves that they'd have been ready for bronze. So it's looking at kind of those that have got the potential to do that. So their basics, like Susanne said, they can do the basics while under pressure is a big one. And I think even Australia, New Zealand, England, they focus on the basics.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, like we said, it's the same game. You have to be able to do the basics while under pressure, but also their mental toughness, because they are going to get knockbacks.
Yeah.
Even when you're selected into the 12, ultimately only 7 girls can go onto the court at a time. So knowing that they can deal with those pressures, because as a coach, I need to have an athlete that is cheering the loudest on the bench, but also putting out everything onto the court. So someone that can do both. I think it's hard as a coach. You could have the best player in the world, but if they're not a team player, then they're no good to you in your team. So things like that we're looking for. Just we focused heavily on the little called them like the bum taps and the little high fives and all of that helps build team cohesion. And you can do all of that even in a trial situation. So I think it's things like that you're looking for from an athlete.
Coachability, I think, as well. It's like, they have to be coachable.
Yeah. Like I was about to say, because like in their level, like when it's the ceiling, like there's players that won't be as good, but if they've got their potential to grow and develop or to bond
sometimes
as a team,
it's that raw talent. You think, she's there. I don't know how she got there. I don't think she knows how she got there, but she's there. Wow. And that sometimes that just comes naturally to people, but they're all and I think also like the girls at that age, they're going through puberty and their arms and their legs are longer than they've been. They're growing at some incredible rate and they're not in control of them right now. So it's important to look and understand the physiology of those girls as well and what that could
100%.
look like. Yeah.
And then when you go to the next step, so you come out of schools, the clubs, and you go into this next part of it, what's the difference? Well, explain first, and then what's the difference between the two?
Yeah, so the next step is, so there's lots of pathways out there. So pathways and academies and programs and that offer the elite netball side. So that kind of the higher level, high performance is obviously a key buzzword, I think, at the minute in the UAE.
Yes.
Everyone's trying to get on these high performance programs, which is great. And I think for us, that's nutrition, that's the psychology and the analysis, all of that is because they play lots at school and club, but it's also recognizing that the schools and the clubs maybe don't have the time even to give them all of that. It's not even necessarily the knowledge, but just the time because they've got so many athletes on board.
Yes.
So that's where the academies and the pathways and programs come into play at that level, which then is hopefully going to feed into obviously what we're then doing with Future Falcons.
Do you look to like develop more like I said, the fundamentals and the foundations are always going to be there, and it's always about improving those. So do you push into a space where nutrition or analytics are becoming so much more valuable into the game, or it's about those finer details? Do you look to push harder into as nutrition, or does S&C when it comes to the development of the game and not so much on the skill set? Or
I think so. I think the programs in the academies are teaching the girl, they're training to train. So that's the difference from the club and the school netball, where I don't want to take the enjoyment out of it, but training to train is not quite as enjoyable, is it really, as playing the game, which is what they all get hooked on in the first place. But then the next step up from that is where all the other bits start to access. And this is where athletes have a responsibility, because you can't do it all for them. And we don't have the funding to do it all for them either. Yeah. So it's our job to educate parents, to educate the players, that nutrition, sleep, and all of those kinds of elements that give you the extra 1%ers are things that they need. So we need partners that want to be involved in the whole S&C side. We've got lots of people. Sophie Hankins massively involved, who's on the open squad in S&C, and I'm sure that she'll be a huge part of whatever that looks like. I know she takes some of the athletes on one-to-ones already. But the athletes need to be prepared to go down that route. We need to educate them as to which of the routes, not saying who they should go to, but what kinds of things they need to be putting into them. So it's not necessarily more time playing the game on court.
Exactly, yeah.
It's that. And this is the difference, isn't it, where they're teenage girls and they love to play because it's great and you're playing in a team sport and you're with your friends, and now all of a sudden it's, perhaps not quite so nice anymore. And perhaps you go to a better team and perhaps you sit on the bench a little bit more and you learn how to do that, because that's not easy either.
Yeah.
No one will say, I love being a bench player. They don't.
No.
Of course they don't, but they might be a fantastic impact player. You got to learn to find out what all those values are and to educate them. So our job is education, really, at that level, I think.
Because it becomes performance-based as well, right?
Yeah.
This is the thing.
Yeah.
So that's the learning someone has to take from up into that next level. So
Absolutely.
And we talk a lot about, I think we talked a lot this year in particular with them about sacrifices. I think everyone sees the glory and they want to see photos of themselves playing and see themselves on TV.
massively.
But actually, what are the sacrifices that they've made to get themselves to that point? And whether it is that you have to put your phone away or you have to eat something that you don't want to eat, or and these girls do make sacrifices. All of the athletes do, because you can't put out that sort of performance if you're going to parties or you're doing other things.
Not doing the training, not doing the nutrition.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think we talk a lot about their sacrifices, and that's part of the education to learn that you have to give these things up. And I think the biggest thing, we've got talented athletes across the board. So that also means they're talented in other sports. So looking at that specialization, you don't ever want to tell someone kind of that you need to specialize in our sport, because that's kind of what we love. Because lots of the girls, we've got really talented. We had girls that play UAE rugby at the same time. And I think it's trying to manage that and looking at those injuries. And obviously UAE rugby also want them to play and train at the highest level. And that's really hard to do side by side, because they're almost putting in double. So it's those sacrifices that sometimes they have to make, and maybe sacrificing playing for the school football team.
Yeah.
In the lead up to your competition, whereas you might want to do that with your friends because it's fun.
Hugely, yeah.
There are two levels, aren't there? There's player load and time management. So I think these are things that we concentrate on a lot at UAE, so that they can try to understand what that means, first of all, because I know when you're 13, have you even heard of player load and time management?
Exactly.
Probably
You're
not.
invincible.
Yeah, exactly. And everyone pulls you in, like Em says, everyone pulls you in lots of different directions. So it's about making intelligent choices for what you want to do and the impact of that. Do I go on my DFE trip or do I come training?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Short-term sacrifice sometimes for long-term
long-term
success.
gain.
And that's hard. And we have intelligent athletes in the program, but it's hard being book intelligent. I think sometimes to making those intelligent choices, like Susanne said, in terms of how do I manage my time as a 13, 14-year-old, that's tough. And that's why you need the guidance from obviously your coaches, but also it's the parents.
Yeah.
I think we obviously don't control what the girls do. And I think it comes down to that. So providing
Huge
not only the
impact.
education to the athletes, but also to the parents.
Parents.
They're the ones fueling the athletes.
And the parents always want the best for their daughter as well, don't they?
Of course they do.
So they really need to understand that, this is actually, especially if it's not a sporting person as well. Like sporting parents get it, I think, but parents that aren't sporting, they're like,
we have amazing parents, though, don't we?
do,
like hugely supportive. I mean, I think we had more parents in the crowd having flown from the UAE to Northern Ireland than some of the Northern Ireland girls.
With their flags.
They had flags out there. They were chanting. So we're very lucky that we do have great backing from our parents, which is half the battle, isn't it?
100%. Like you need and they need a support system around, especially when the pressure gets up and as you go through these higher rankings.
That's right.
Yeah.
What's the next step when it comes to the program development?
So in terms of our development, so we're looking to bring on board, like Susanne said, partners. So we really need to focus on strength and conditioning is a big one. Nutrition is another big one that I think as coaches, we sometimes have to look at our limits as to what we can give, and we can't give them everything.
Yeah.
We have to look at where we specialize. So like I said, Susie was my assistant coach this season, and her specialism is absolutely the analysis, and she's amazing at it. So whereas I wouldn't need to ask her to go and deliver the nutrition side because you kind of focus on your strengths. So
completely different skill set.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're looking at that. That's a big one, but also bringing them in weekly.
Yeah.
So bringing them in weekly to kind of face up against each other. So like Susan said, not only training to train, they get that through their academies and their pathways, but looking at what that looks like from an international stage. So getting it earlier. So I think earlier exposure to what that looks like. I know we've discussed looking at other countries and maybe going to play against them kind of more often, or touring teams and heading to the UK where we can face that high level of competition so that the girls then can bring that experience back. And I think ultimately that feeds back into the UAE and it feeds back into grassroots level, because these girls are out there on the court week in, week out, and playing against their schools and their clubs, and they'll then feed that back. So it's just bringing that different style of netball just to to grow our game. I think that's kind of the next step.
Mm.
More exposure, more contact time,
Yeah.
kind of more education around the nutrition, psychology, analysis.
It's a tough one though too, like you're saying, because like it costs money to obviously develop stuff. It costs money to go traveling as well. Whether you're the one traveling there or the one coming here, you know, there's a plan to it. Like you got to plan like a year in advance at least minimum in order for that to happen, right? So it's
Rome wasn't built in a day, and we're not going to get this done in a day. So I think the first thing is we get the program up and running.
Yeah.
That's hugely important, and we're not going to achieve everything in year one, for sure. We're not. So
100%.
And also I think going out into Abu Dhabi, so spreading ourselves across two different sides, and we can see Sharjah netball is massively growing at the moment as well at the junior level, and that's going to go into youth level. So again, maybe in 2 to 3 years' time, there'll be a Sharjah hub as well. It's important. I think we also need to find a home for UAE netball. We currently are in a couple of schools, which is great, but you know, it's also important to have more of a club sort of like structure, I think, around. So we have a big event coming up this year where we'll be at Al Nasser, and Al Nasser Club could maybe potentially become a good home for UAE netball, which would be exciting. So trying to get them to put some sunken posts in and put our lights on the court.
Wink, wink.
Yeah, that's going to be, that's interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's important to know that. And also we're talking about the prep for like the future Falcons and what that looks like. And we've done a few different things this year for the open squad because we're facing up against some different competition. We went to the Marex's Cup in Singapore last October, faced up against like the likes of Kenya and Singapore, completely different styles of netball. We had to bring everything out of the box, and we didn't have everything in the box, if I'm really honest, to tackle all of that. So we have a growing men's structure under Gillian Wilson, who's worked with Emna back in the UK, who has been growing the sort of like men's side of it. We've got mixed netball that's growing and men's netball that's growing. That is really exciting. And we've been playing against the men for the open squad.
Yeah.
It's great training, great preparation. Yeah. It's a whole other game.
Yeah.
And they're bringing things out that's not comfortable at all. But it's good preparation for us. So we're really excited about the development that's bringing. So we're constantly, that's what Deb's really great at. She's constantly looking at ways that we can improve. And that's how she's heading up the program and leading that whole performance section. Because we could stay still and do the same thing over and over again. But if you don't ever change, then nothing ever changes.
We left behind as well,
we have great aspirations for the UAE. It's a country where you can have great aspirations and you can see them through in a relatively short space of time. And I think we've done an amazing job because we live in an amazing country that allows us to do that. And there's more amazing things to come. So you've got to keep going. It's exciting.
What's the feeder from the program into the open? Because that's obviously the big part. You know, you need open success in order for the youth to go, wow, that's what I want to be doing. There's obviously a very transitional country as well. So with the program based around, and it's mostly based around youth, right? So it is about the development of youth into the international, into the open teams.
So there's been a few already that have transitioned and played both under 17 level, then also gone to open and played alongside each other. And I know that there's a few of the girls that were part of the under 17, like I know our captain is kind of training now with the open squad and rightly so. And she absolutely deserves kind of her spot in that long squad to make sure that she's pushing those girls and also taking her experiences playing against the likes of England that the Open haven't yet experienced. No. So playing against those girls, I think would be an eye-opener for even our open squad right now. So to bring those experiences back with her and bring them in and try new things. Like Susanne said, it's all about just trying new things and seeing what works. They're not always going to work, but let's see.
Totally. How do you develop the game? Because like the Nations Cup, we'll talk about in a second, because that's what I want to move this into as well, because you know, to inspire the youth, obviously go through that fun and then performance and that their mental change, you need a successful senior team, right?
You do,
yeah. And it's part of any sport, part of any country. Like that's why you see it grow in that country, because their senior teams are doing so well on the international stage, or at least competing, and there's an opportunity for they see themselves being on that stage eventually. What is it that you look for, like when it goes from the youth? What are you trying to instill in them before they get into potentially the opportunities of the senior team?
It's a real tough one because obviously I don't think it's the transience of the society that is difficult, but we're not at a stage yet where we have youngsters staying and doing their education here in this country, so they tend to leave. So we have a bit of a staccato effect. So we kind of so we kind of like go up and up and up, and we're great, and we've got these under 17s in there, and then they will go. So some of them come back and that's great. But building that open squad is really tough. that's a real tough one because, as I say, everybody's an amateur. Everybody works full time, so you're trying to train and do all your nutrition and your gym and your S&C all around a full-time job and a family, even for some of them.
Yeah.
So that's actually also really quite challenging and difficult. But you just got to keep going with that, and these girls will feed up into that. And so only one or two of them might make it up onto that squad, and they might have 1 or 2 years because, like I say, if they're in year 11 right now and they've got another couple of years, then they might get a couple of years going into the open squad, and then they might go, and then we might get people that have gone to university that then they come back because they've maintained residency.
Yep.
So it's all
There's
about
more people staying
those
long term here in the UAE as well,
loads
right?
of people staying long term. Yeah.
And lots of people are like coming back, so they'll go to university and then parents are still here or realise that this is where they want to be and
100%.
and come back and do that. And I think this is where we've also got to focus on, although we lose them, but if we can prep them to go and play high level in wherever they go off to university, they're still playing that high level netball. So if they come back, they're still at that right standard. And I think that's massively grown. Even in the time that I've been here, girls that left to go to university were making social teams, weren't making teams at universities, whereas now they're making first and second teams.
Yeah, amazing.
Against girls that are playing in the Super League and playing internationally. So I think that's the growth, and I think that's what we've got to look at. And although we don't want to lose them and we're prepping them and they're going off and having success in other countries, I think long term we've got to think about what that looks like and for them to come back and be able to do open.
Yeah. That success though inspires the youth back here though, because they can see someone's gone through this pathway and to go there, you know, so that only helps grow the game, in my opinion. Like,
we have a young girl who's in under 21 Welsh team, isn't she?
Wow.
Yeah. Somebody in Scottish.
Yeah, there's a couple in the Scottish
and the Irish
program
lineup as well. So there's into those programs. So it is really exciting and really cool.
Yeah.
And we've also, like we said before, about attracting people coming into this country. We've got a few people who've been here almost a couple of years now that will become eligible, that are high level players.
Wicked.
So again, we need to make sure that we can maintain that growth and get them on the outside, keep them involved in a long open squad, so that they're also training and being at the right level and being part of that, making those connections with all of the girls. I think that's really important. So yeah, it's not easy. But
No.
Yeah, we try every way we can.
If it was easy, everyone would do it.
It wouldn't be as fun.
What inspiration do you get from other sports? Because obviously, with the country where it is, and like other sports are trying to go to the same thing, there's their growth. Do you take like learnings from other sports as well, like what they're doing to put in place, or even just the like hang in there because it will happen eventually, just keep going type of thing?
Yeah, well, everybody talks to each other. I think that's the great thing. I think cycling and triathlon has been a real massive success story.
Yeah.
We have great relations with Apollo at UAE Rugby, obviously. I think that's probably the most akin. We look at all the other sports, but everyone's so different and you're targeting different audiences. Basketball is a completely different audience, but they've now brought in the 3v3, which is exciting. So looking at other ways that we can get people to come across to netball maybe and see if they'd like to get involved in that.
Is Fast 5 the type of thing that goes on here?
Yeah, it is. It's an interesting one, Fast 5. It was actually designed by Kate Agnew to attract a different cohort of netballers, but actually it's just attracted the same ones in a different format. So it didn't quite tick the box. So, but it's difficult. So World Netball are looking at the whole structure of netball at the moment across the world, the IP that they own, like the World Cups, etc., and Fast 5, and what that looks like. And do we stay an all-female game? Is that our aim? Or are we heading for the Olympics? And are we diversifying? Is the men's and mixed coming? These are all conversations that are regularly had. We're very lucky to be a huge part of those conversations. The UAE are intrinsically linked with Europe Netball and also World Netball. And we've had some exciting conversations with our strategic partners of what that could look like. And of course, the UAE want to be a part of that. And we're well placed to, and we're also well equipped to. Yeah. So I think everything that is leading towards a potential World Cup, that's what we want. So we might be starting with a small event this year, although it feels like a very big event to be organising at the moment. But, you know, we have our sights on the real big picture. And what that looks like in a few years' time, it could be very different to what it looks like at the moment. It might be more of a mixed event. We don't know. So we're building and growing the whole community of netball, whether it's guys and girls or whether it's just guys or just girls.
And the mixed community here is amazing.
So
and they love it.
It's good fun. It's fun.
As well. And I think looking at mixed leagues and mixed tournaments, and it is where the fun is. And I think it's different because it's been an all-female sport for so long. And I think
in the UAE or?
They're all over the
All
world.
over the
It's
world.
been,
All over the
I've been
world.
playing it for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
No, you guys have, but it's
Yeah.
interesting how the associations or the federations are sort of like worked. There tend to be separate associations for
Yeah.
the men and for the women. So I think it's time to unify a little bit more, maybe to go down that road. But
Yeah.
the Sevens has been great
It
for
has been
building and
great.
growing the mixed community.
Yes, yep.
So we have a mixed sort of like section in that came out a few years ago, and that's been great. And yeah, it's just building and growing.
Yeah,
which is
and
great.
it's just been great to see the men really get involved and come from like a basketball or like rugby or kind of whatever sports they've been playing and to learn the game. And they're amazing. And it's hard, and we've all joked about this, that we've all been training our whole lives, and the men come in and they're amazing, and they've only just played, and you're like, we've been working really hard for this our whole lives. But no, and it's just a different element to the game, and I think it just keeps it fun and it keeps it exciting, which is ultimately what we want the sport to be.
Massively. Let's go into the Nations Cup, because that's the big thing you were talking about in the next few months. It's happening, and it's a part of the development as well. It provides opportunities for the federation to grow and to get more awareness. What actually, from your point of view, what is the whole? Everyone wants to put on a World Cup. Everyone wants to host World Cup. The UAE has absolutely unbelievable facilities to be able to do that. What is it that you need to establish, and what's the goal for the Nations Cup besides the World Cup at the end? Like, what's the first kind of thing you're looking for?
First step was that we, as a country, need to play some good ranking games. We've been in the challenge section of Europe Netball competing, and that's been great, and it's been definitely our training ground and our growing ground. But we're at a stage now where we're in those early 20s. We were 21st in the world. We have to play a number of games in the world ranking system to maintain your ranking, but we're 23rd in the world, and actually for the UAE, that is the highest ranking in any sport for the UAE. So we're taking that one.
Amazing.
But we need to protect it because it doesn't stay there forever. You need to continue playing games. So the biggest thing for us was to make sure that we could get the girls to play the right caliber of games to gain valuable ranking points and to keep us up in that around the 20-ish, 25 mark. That's really crucially important. We want to get ourselves into a World Cup by merit, not by just because we're hosting. So I think that is one of the things that we're trying to do. But equally, the UAE want to host, and we want to be a host nation for netball. We are geographically ideally located, obviously.
So many sports already here, right? They're coming to be hosted.
Absolutely. And it's time. And I think, one of the pillars of the UAE is to grow and promote females in sport, whether that's on the court or off the court. So this is a massive opportunity for people to get involved in the sport, and it's also a great opportunity for people to get behind it. So from a sponsorship perspective, we're looking for partners. So we're not looking for people just to jump in and be part of a one singular event. This is the beginning of our journey on a journey towards World Cup hosting. So we're looking for journey partners to get involved. There's some really exciting packages that we work with Falcon and Associates as our strategic partner who are putting on the event, and they work in connection with the UAE Federation. So we're looking for people to get on that journey with us, and it's an exciting one. I mean, you literally have the eyes of everybody from or around the UAE that are going to be coming, but we're also going to be live streamed. I think Dubai TV are coming down for it too. We have a title sponsor that I don't think I'm able to mention right now, but it will be very exciting. And people who've been involved in netball are also equally involved in this Nations Cup, but we're looking for some new exciting partners to get involved as well, to grow the family. It's all about family. It's all about community. And I think it's really important that we have that opportunity. So they're the two main reasons, to be honest, to host, but also to have good ranking games. And again, that in turn is going to excite the future generations to get people involved, whether that's in an official capacity or a playing capacity or just as a spectator. You're going to be able to have some first-class netball right here. That's never happened right here in the UAE. That's
very exciting for the sport. So I was like, what about the athletes? So what's the athlete side of it as well? Like, they must be very excited to be like,
they are. I think nervous because we were looking at the schedule the other day that will come out shortly too, and sort of look at the draw. And generally you can say, okay, so we might be able to get all of our players on like for sort of like this game, but every game is going to be tough. There are some exciting Irish players coming back into the fold that were not there in our previous game against them in Singapore. So we know that's also going to be a tough game. They probably play the most similar netball to us. But Kenya, we obviously had a flavour of last year, and Singapore. Namibia, we've never played, so that's going to be exciting. And exciting, we've got Team USA coming, who we know nothing about.
Yeah.
But equally, they're trying to get up in the rankings. They're trying to consolidate themselves, and I think also want to be a bit of a host nation in the future. So these are all these new countries that are coming up. So World Netball want to share the love and get more countries involved. There's no point always going back to the same country, always doing the same thing, because then you'll always get the same thing. We need to be inspiring new nations to get on board and saying, look, we're the UAE. We're really quite small, but look what we've done in 8 years, and look what you could do too. That's the great thing about the UAE. They're great to champion an event like this. So we don't have all the money that we'd like to have right now, but it always comes down to money. But we certainly got the following. And talking about it and being able to have a showcase event like this is hugely important.
Yeah.
So eyes on UAE Netball. It's really exciting.
Massively. What would come from a coaching perspective when it comes to this kind of thing as well? Because obviously, how much nerves do you get as a coach to go like, okay, or to bring in coaches? Is there another thing too? Like the players is one, the game is one, but the coaching side as well, right? Is there something around with the Nations Cup to bring in other coaches to
that's
develop?
a good question. I'm going to take it back to the under-17s first of all, before we go back onto the Nations Cup, because during the under-17s, so for Emily, as she said, that was her first foray as a head coach. She's learned under Deb Jones, an ex-England national player. She's worked along various different coaches, but she's given so much time to UAE Netball, and then to go out on your own, that's quite a big thing. But she also had Mel Mansfield, who's a huge part of netball in the UK and was a great mentor for Em. Came out for a couple of days of the competition. It was really nice to watch her come into our team meetings and sit back and say, "You've got it. I actually don't need to tell you anything. You've got it." Yes, she gave us a few tips and things like that, but she was really proud to see that somebody has actually made it through. And that's the same thing that we endeavour to do everywhere, because like I said before, you need lots of voices for these girls, and just the tiniest little things. So we had Kaz Atkinson, who came over, also ex-international player, England player rather, living currently in Saudi. She came over and did a training session with our open girls, and she'll be back in April to give some of her time to our open squad too. So there's lots of people getting involved, technical coaches that come and do various little sessions. We've got sort of like coacher players as well that kind of like do that. So at the moment, Sue's the under-17 assistant coach, is also assistant over on the open. Her technical ability and sort of like statistics and things on the game are really vital. So she's working with Deb Jones, who's actually still currently heading that role up for the time being. But we're obviously expanding the coaching team. So for now, I think you do get nervous. Over to you for that one.
Of course you do, because I think you get nervous for them. I think more than anything else, because you know how hard they've worked and what they've put in. And you just want them to be able to go and execute that on the court. So I can imagine, obviously I can't really speak for Deb, but I can imagine that's what she'll be feeling when all eyes are on. And normally it's just all eyes on a live stream, and it's through YouTube, and they watch it, and it's not as intense as actually them being live in the crowd. So for them to have that exposure will be great. And I think this is what we're looking to expand our coaching team for, because you don't get that sort of exposure unless you go to these big competitions. So I wouldn't have had that, obviously working with like Deb as her assistant for a number of years, and then going out and actually doing it. I think it's hard. I can't even imagine what that would have felt like, being thrown in if I'd never experienced it before. So to open up the coaching team, and that's what we're looking to do with our future Falcons, to be able to give them that exposure and be able to open up and develop coaches. Because as much as we want to develop the athletes and the netball scene that we have here, that starts with the coaches, because that doesn't happen unless you've got a strong kind of coaching team behind them.
Massively,
that's massively what we're trying to look at. And we're, as the athletes are trying to get better, we're also trying to get better as coaches and gain. And like Susanne said, having Mel come across, and she's a friend of mine from back at home. So sometimes you have to, at this stage in our journey, you have to draw on favours from 100%. Friends, and to bring her into the mix, and for her to kind of give us a few pointers and just to be there kind of as that support was great as well. And Karen Atkinson is obviously amazing in what she does. So to have all of those experiences as coaches within UAE Netball is amazing, just as the athletes get it.
Yeah. How do you go from next stage? It was like hosting a major event. It is a major event because
it is.
It's never been done here before. So
True.
First one.
You know what I mean? What's the next step? Because like consistency is the key, and you talk about a journey towards hosting a World Cup. So is it a major event that gets bigger, or is it more events happening, or is it supporting even other events that happen here, like say if it's Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Sharjah, like
It's a little bit of everything, I think. I think it's really important that we are consistent. You can't have a journey if you just have a beginning and an end. You've got to have something in the middle of it. So our aim is very much to host something every year.
Yeah.
And we want to also host in Abu Dhabi as well as in Dubai. We'd like to think that when we get to World Cup stage and bidding process, that we can bid as a two-city nation that will be able to provide something. And certainly if the World Cup is changing to include other things, then, you know, maybe that would also be a really good thing to have. So we've got the facilities here, which is absolutely fantastic. So yeah, we need to be able to sort of like build and grow that and do it every year. But it also means not only having our own IP, like the Nations Cup that obviously will belong to the federation, but it's also being able to host World Netball events. So you mentioned Fast Five. That's very much something that we'd like to look at. I think it's a spectator friendly event. It's exciting. You've got, you know, a bit of who's going to get the double pointers and a bit trepidation, all those kinds of things. So I think it's important to be able to do that and lots of other events. And World Netball are looking at what the event calendar looks like. Obviously, we don't know what's happening with the Commonwealth Games and whether that will be something that will continue. So there could be a gap in the calendar that needs to be filled. And we need to make sure that we looked at whether we're creating more things or whether World Netball are creating more things. But certainly being a host country, and it doesn't necessarily have to just be bigger and bigger. It needs to be consistent, but we also need to be able to welcome other people in. So it could be that we hosted a test series for New Zealand and England, for example. So again, bringing amazing netball onto the UAE soil would be incredible. And then we can assist it with a bit of a showcase event with you know, guys and the girls and that kind of thing. So we're continually bringing different things into the UAE. That's really important, I think.
Do you have those early stages, those steps, like Nation Cup with 6 teams, is it, I believe?
There are 6 teams,
6 teams, yeah. And like you just very quickly mentioned there, like hosting other countries come in, because it happens in other sports with cricket, with football,
For sure.
and rugby does it as well, where they're 2 different countries come here and that's what they have, like an off season, or even their like top counties from England come over and they compete as well. And it happens in cricket, it just happened recently down in Abu Dhabi.
That's right.
When it comes to your guys' event now, and I know the future, you're looking at participation from the outside, so for more people here in the UAE, or is it about bringing those international teams in here?
I think it would depend who was coming in. You wouldn't want to be setting up yourself against like the top 5 in the world. I just think that would not be a great experience for the UAE.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
But they might have development teams that they bring in. So you might have like a test series with, let's say, New Zealand and England, for example, but they might also bring their development team. And then maybe that's something that we would get involved with. So it wouldn't, you have to be careful how many things you do like that and the funding of that event and who's obviously going to cost that out. And also, what are we doing and what are we exposing our girls to? Is it a practice game or is it a ranking game? So we need to make sure that we're careful about things like that. But there are so many more people that we can be inviting. I think that we're doing a great job now. I think we've got some amazing countries that are coming. And, you know, we've been given the confidence to do that through the people at Europe Netball, like Maggie Jackson, who's been around for donkey's years, and Cheryl and Janet, all the people who are behind the scenes that people perhaps don't know about, who have given us the confidence to say, yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. Go on, do it. Go and I'll give you this contact. I'll give you that contact. And then you call them and they go, yeah, we'd love to come. Like, oh, okay, that's actually happening. So we're at that stage, but it's so exciting. It's just a couple of months away,
it's very, very cool.
It's not far.
What do you get to have that? I mean, let's stick with the Nations Cup, because bringing them here is obviously that big first step. Do you get to have communications with the teams? Is there any? How do you put this? Because there's a development, obviously, for people to get more involved with the Nations Cup, but the teams too, knowing where they're at, I suppose they've all got aspirations to be playing in the World Cup, to be developing their game as well. Is there like, can you work together with Namibia, Kenya, Singapore to grow the game, or to help each other kind of support to build towards
Absolutely. Because I think the World Cup as it stands at the moment, it favours 16 countries. It's perhaps a bit clunky in the way that teams are selected, and you know, you've got different regions that have got different talents, and we want to see different netball. So the Africas play a very different kind of netball. The Americas play a very different kind of netball. We're developing our own sense of who we're about. So I think that there's a place for a Netball Cup and a netball trophy event or a shield event at the same time. So yes, I think by them coming out and coming to play against us, we'll become allies. I think we did already, just going to Singapore in last October for the Marexis Cup. You develop relationships. That's what it's all. It's a very small world, the netball world.
Yeah.
Everyone's in the same boat. We're an amateur sport. We don't have any money. It's always been female only. Everyone's fighting against everything else to try and get their sport up there. So I think there's a huge amount of camaraderie and willingness to support each other. So I think the more of these kinds of events that we do, then yes, I think absolutely we as nations would be working together to create something that we have more opportunities to do this. So yeah, for sure.
When it comes to the World Cup, what kind of plan is that? Is that a 5-year, 10-year type thing, or just let's see, we just throw the dart?
Probably around
just like
2031-ish.
2031-ish?
Yeah, 2031-ish.
Put on the calendars.
Mark the calendar.
World Netball have gone out to a massive consultation on what their calendar looks like and what their IP looks like. So obviously that's really exciting, and we don't know obviously what all the ins and outs of those conversations are and what the final decisions have been made. But we have a new CEO for World Netball, Fiona Harold, who comes from golf background, massive in sport, and really having a big overhaul. So she's on a journey around the world at the moment, trying to sort of like see what these things look like and talking to the people who obviously have won the next World Cup is in Brisbane. So just trying to sort of like look and see what all of these things look like and how we can make bigger and better events and how we can grow the sport. So it's all up in the air at the moment. We don't know exactly what the next journey is, but it will be within the next decade.
Okay, that's very exciting. I want to kind of leave this on the part of what would be the tips, the top tip or the top 2 or 3 tips that you would give to someone aspiring to be future Falcon, make their open team. What were that one thing or 2 things that you'd like to say that goes, this is what you need to be able to do?
Just start playing.
Play.
Just start playing.
Play.
You do you.
Yeah.
Do you? I think there's a lot of voices.
Be open to everything, take in every single experience that gets thrown at you, get as many voices or be in front of as many coaches as possible, because they're all going to give you something for your toolkit.
Yep.
And just keep the love for the game. Don't forget why they started playing. Yeah, it would be my biggest thing.
Yeah,
awesome.
Absolutely.
One last thing, look down that camera there and just tell them where they can find you. What's on here over here?
Oh, this one.
That one there. So Future Falcons, you can find that on the website. So it's uaenetball.org.
And on our social media channel. So at UAE Netball, everything is posted on our social media. All the links are on there through Linktree.
Brilliant. So exciting talking to you guys about netball, and just exciting to see where the sport's going to go. And being a Kiwi and have been around netball for so long, but then to see what's happening here in the UAE. So well done on what you've done so far, and excited to see what you guys have in the future. I say future Falcons, that's kind of a cliche.
That's what we call it now, future
Well,
Falcons.
seeing as you mentioned that you played netball, we're going to have to get you over to play netball.
That's
So you have to put your kit on and get on that court.
There we go.
Yeah.
On into it. But thank you very much, and we'll talk very much about it soon as well. But more, we have to get you guys back on as it comes through
thank you for
over
having
the
us.
Nations Cup.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you. Awesome.